Hey there, relocated Deebs here. Welcome to the Benzo Rehab Projects Channel. You might notice a slight difference in my normal background. Where before I had to set up a green screen to make it look like I was in an abandoned house, I'm just actually in what used to be an abandoned house now. I'm moving up in the world and using practical effects. Speaking of moving, today's episode is going to focus on some tips I have for moving and getting set up in your newly purchased fixer-upper. So, moving sucks. I hate it. It's one of my least favorite activities, but since I've had to do it several times in my life, I've got some tips and tricks that will hopefully help you when doing your own move, especially if it's long distance. Moving tip number 1: start packing early. Packing can be an overwhelming task. You're taking all of your stuff and shoving it into boxes that you're going to then shove into a truck and drive a very long distance with no reasonable way of accessing all those things in the duration of your move. Just figuring out where to start can be daunting, so here's my advice. As soon as you know you are going to move, start packing stuff up. Start with decorations, anything that's non-essential to living. Keep working your way down non-essential items towards essential items as you get close to your move. When you're starting to pack your more essential items, consider putting those boxes aside so that you can easily access them in case you need to, or put them in a piece of luggage. I highly recommend putting most of your regularly worn clothes, any medications you take, any hygiene items, etc., in pieces of luggage that you keep completely separate from the rest of your items. By the time you are ready to move, you should basically be living out of these pieces of luggage and everything should be broken down and packed up. The earlier you start to pack, the less anxiety you'll have as you get closer to moving day. By the time moving day was around for me, I knew it was just a simple process of taking all the boxes down to the truck, which brings me to tip number 2. Moving tip number 2: know your load. When you're reserving a moving truck, there's a couple of things you need to consider. Most companies will tell you approximately what capacity of truck is appropriate for the size of place you are moving. In addition to this, whether or not you are going to be towing a vehicle will likely impact the size of vehicle you'll be renting. Make sure you accurately put in all information regarding the vehicle you are towing because some vehicles need specific trailers due to either their size or whether or not they are front or rear wheel drive vehicles. In my case, I knew I was dropping off the old Prius with my partner in Louisiana and picking up the family truck, so I put in information for the truck and was recommended their full-size trailer, which also meant the smallest truck I could rent was the 16-footer. Once you know what size of truck you are getting, you should look up the exact dimensions of the truck to make sure all of your stuff will fit into the truck. Something you can do to help visualize this is to set aside a space in a room, measure out the width and length of the truck, and put down some painter's tape. You will want to make sure you use painter's tape so you don't damage any flooring or walls on the floor to mark out the edges of the truck, and a piece of tape on the wall to indicate the height of the truck. When you start packing everything up, put the boxes in that area so you can get a good feel for whether or not you've gotten an adequately sized truck or if you need to contact the rental agency to adjust the size of truck you're getting. Another thing about the rental is if you're planning on towing a vehicle, driving a big box truck with a trailer is stressful, to say the least. Something you could do to make things a little bit easier on yourself is ask the rental company if you can pick up the trailer when you are done packing up the truck. In my case, my apartment had a very cramped parking area, and I would have to leave the trailer around the corner in an area that I wouldn't be able to see it. So I asked if I could just pick up the trailer the next day after getting the truck, and they were fine with it. So once the truck was packed, we got the trailer, loaded the car up, and took off on our trip from there. Speaking of packing trucks. Moving tip 3: how to pack a truck correctly. I've tried doing this a number of ways, and the way that has worked best is to do the following. Get a bunch of standard size boxes. The rental company will usually sell them, or you can get some from your hardware store of choice, but you'll want the boxes to be roughly the same dimensions or a very limited number of different box dimensions. When packing the truck, you will want to put the boxes in first. You might think, no, I want to put the big pieces of furniture in first to make sure I can fit them all in. And this is wrong. The boxes will be able to be neatly stacked against the front of the truck, leaving you all the rest of the truck to figure out how to Tetris all the weird furniture pieces together so that they fit, and any luggage, items, or boxes you need to leave towards the back of the truck for ease of access while you are traveling. You'll also want to get some ratchet straps that go across certain pieces of furniture in the back of the truck to ensure that they do not shift a lot during travel. And strapping down these large pieces of furniture against your box wall on the front will help keep everything in place during travel. Using all these things I've learned over the years, packing the truck took my partner and I less than 3 whole hours. Every bit of preparation pays off big when it comes to moving day. So now you've got to drive to your destination. I don't have a lot of tips here except that you should take breaks when necessary and don't try to fight through sleep. As things are starting to get late, look up lodgings in your immediate area or a city or town not too far down the road. If you are pulling a trailer, you will not want to try to find a hotel in a downtown city area, so stick to the outskirts of a city if that's your situation. Okay, so you've reached your destination. Congratulations. This is where the first of my real troubles began. It turns out that the family truck had just a little bit too long of a wheelbase and too loose of a suspension to properly stay on the trailer, and I'll let the video explain it. So I am here at the house. Basically in the same shape I left it, it looks like. The truck here. So basically immediately after leaving Baton Rouge, this thing slipped off the back a little ways. We had those boards kind of propped underneath it so we could get the try to zoom in on that. That little handle right there is the handle for pulling out the ramp. Not too major. We had it all the way up to the front, but it slipped back a couple of inches, as you can see. And then, yeah, it just kind of wedged itself in there. I mean, those straps are good and strong, so it's not a huge issue. It's just in order to back this thing off because, as you can see, it is resting on the frame now. I'm gonna have to jack the back end of this up, which shouldn't be an issue. I just went to a hardware store around the corner. I got some jacks. I should only need one of them, but I got a second one just in case. It'll end up coming in useful anyways when I need to re-level the floors and everything. So we'll get this thing jacked up and off. Then I can disconnect the trailer. I can start unloading the truck. But that's it for now. So this is what I wound up with. I grabbed one of the 2x4s that I had in the back of the truck here. See them back there. Cut one into a bunch of same size blocks so that it can make up the difference, because the jack isn't going to reach all the way up there, you know. So we're going to start jacking and we'll see what happens with it. I won't be able to record any of that because I don't have my tripod out or anything yet. So I'm just going to set this camera down and I'll record whether or not it was successful. Alright, I have the truck loose. I had to pile up a bunch of 2x4s underneath the wheels and kind of shimmy it so that I could get the safety chain. You can see it laying underneath there, so I get that loose. The jack, I don't know, I'm just gonna have to roll back over it, I think, but I should be able to back it off now. Might scrape a little bit, but it's there. But that'll be okay, I think. Once the back tires get back a little ways, the front tires will level it out. We'll see. I don't want to fuck with that jack right now, so I'm just gonna roll it backwards and see what happens. Okay. I probably sound like I'm out of breath because I am, but that's what we got right now. I use this jack and that jack to kind of trade off. And I stacked more blocks under that. Bottle jack is more strong than this one, and it works quite a bit better. So I have the frame off of the trailer bed now. As you can see, I've built little ramps. I'm going to release the pressure. The vehicle's in park, by the way, so it shouldn't move. I'm going to relieve the pressure on the bottle jack, and that should just sit right there and allow me to back it up at least enough so that I can get the ramps out a little bit for the front tires. We'll see how it goes. Okay, the riddle has been solved. As you can see, the truck is off. What I ended up doing is not only did I build up the back, and then you can see sorry, I'm out of breath. You can see the bottle jack is laying down there. I used the front jack to lift up the front a little bit to lower that back end so it wasn't resting on the frame anymore. And once I did that, I had to crank that thing so hard, by the way. Here, let me see if we can. I am just drenched in sweat because I was cranking that thing as hard as I fucking could, basically. So I'm gonna reconnect the trailer. I'm gonna close this fucking thing up. I'm not gonna bother picking the rest of this up. I'm gonna close this truck up because I am desperate for food and water. I neglected to get myself any water today. I've drank nothing but Red Bull. So yeah, I did it. I'm gonna get that seated back. Get all well, no, I'll probably just leave it disconnected so I can pull the truck forward and bring the ramp down. But I got it. So with the truck free, after about 3 hours of fucking around with it to get it loose, I was exhausted, filthy, and I needed to get some food. So I did that, and while I was out, I picked up a few things I knew I'd need for moving the stuff into the house. Since my plan was to immediately start gutting the place, I picked a room with a stable enough floor and put some plastic sheeting down. These can be found in the painting supplies area of your hardware store of choice. And I taped down the sheeting with painter's tape. Painter's tape is great stuff because it holds pretty well and with very few exceptions will not damage anything it's applied to. You'll see me using this stuff quite a lot, especially when I start doing some of the finish work in the house. With the plastic down, I started piling boxes on top of the plastic area and then covered them in plastic sheets and sealed the edge facing the hallway with some more painter's tape. This will keep most of the dust out of my belongings as I begin demolishing all the finished walls in the hallway and adjacent rooms. I'm very glad I did this because it turns out that behind the faux wood paneling and in some places 2 layers of drywall, there's the original plaster and lath walls from when the house was built. And if you know anything about demoing plaster, it's a very dusty and miserable business, but that's for another video. Then we move on to my living situation. Since it's just me out here because my partner possesses the good sense to not live like a hobo in a house that doesn't have functioning plumbing, I'm camped up in one of the better rooms of the house. I've run extension cords up into the area I'm staying in so I can use a lamp and set up my computer station for things like ordering materials, looking up services in the area, and let's be honest, playing the old video games when it's too dark to keep working. On the floor in the room, I used an old drop cloth I had from back when I used to try being an artist to use it as a carpet. I also have a blow-up mattress, an old blanket, and some sheets that I don't care about ruining, and my suitcase full of work clothes. This is basically all I need to survive, not really thrive, but it's comfortable enough for now. Kind of like a glamping trip, if you really think about it. But unlike glamping, I don't have access to running water quite yet. I found the breaker that powers the well pump and it kicked on just fine, which I was very glad to see until I saw all the water coming out of the various poorly installed pipes around the house. Oops. So, no showers for me for the time being. Which brings me to the next subject. What am I doing to stay clean? Well, I was in the Marines before, as I've mentioned once or twice, and while I have few positive things I can say about that experience, one of the few good things about it is that I've developed some methods to maintain a suboptimal but overall adequate level of clean without running water. It's not great, but Look, it works. For cleaning off at the end of the day of busting the plaster off of walls, you're going to want a bunch of baby wipes. No, I'm not kidding. I've found that the best ones are typically scentless and explicitly say on the box not to flush them because that usually means that they're a stronger fiber. Is it as good as a shower? Absolutely not. Will it work for a week or so between actual showers? Yeah. Here's how you do it. Using a single sheet, clean off your damn mitts since they'll be touching the rest of you in the next few minutes of shameful, ultimately inadequate scrubbing. Secondly, you'll want to take a sheet or two and give your face and head a good wiping. If you're bald like me, this is probably going to be more effective than if you've got a thick, luscious head of hair. If you're doing a lot of overhead demolition, you might find it wise to wear a hat of some kind to keep your hair from getting a lot of dust and cobwebs in it. You should be wearing full-length pants and at least a t-shirt when doing demolition to keep yourself adequately covered, but next you should work on cleaning off any exposed parts of your limbs. And then, in a quiet, dark corner of your room with an adequately clean floor, begin to disrobe. Leave the socks on. No, I'm serious, leave the socks on for now. Now it's time to take a few sheets to all of your stink parts. Using 1 or 2 sheets at a time, vigorously scrub each part until satisfied, tossing the sheets away for every distinct zone that you clean. Put some clean clothes on. Now it's time to hit those little piggies. The socks come off when the underoos go back on. Hopefully you have something like a fold-out camping chair or bench to sit on, but go ahead and plop her down and have a go at them. Then put some new socks on. And there you go. Your outside is approximately clean. For brushing your teeth, I recommend keeping a Tupperware handy with a secure lid. This is going to be your sink. You can keep a toothbrush in a Ziploc bag or the Tupperware container if it's big enough. Apply toothpaste to the toothbrush and drizzle some water over it while it is over the Tupperware. Keep a bottle of water handy to rinse out your mouth and then pour some water into the Tupperware until you have about 3/4 of an inch of water in the bottom. When you're done brushing your teeth, you can use this water to swish around your toothbrush to rinse it out, and then, of course, dump out the water. Again, none of this is ideal. You won't feel like you just walked out of the spa, but it is good enough to keep you from getting gross for an extended period of not having access to running water. You're also going to want a decent cooler to keep some water and other drinks in. Demolition is hard work, and you'll want to be drinking a doctor's recommended amount of water each day. The better the cooler, the longer the ice you put in it will last. At first I was leaving my cooler outside, but now that I have quite a bit of demolition done in the main hallway and some other rooms, I've moved it inside, which helps the longevity of the ice quite a lot. Also make sure your door locks or has a bracket for a lock on it to make sure you stay safe at night or that you can lock things up whenever you leave the house to get supplies and whatnot. I'm not particularly paranoid about other people, but it doesn't hurt to err on the side of caution when it comes to keeping you and your belongings relatively safe. Okay, I think that's all of my tips for now. The next video should be about how to start demolition on the interior of your house and what tools, protective equipment, and skills you'll need to do it safely. Oh wait, I forgot. If you need to take a shit, you can just go to one of the big box stores in town. They usually have publicly accessible bathrooms, and they owe you because your tax dollars have probably subsidized aid programs that make up for how poorly they pay their workers. My favorite to use is Walmart. Okay, that's it for now, for real. A reminder that the Benzo Rehab Dungeon and the Projects Channel will always be freely available broadcasts, but if you like what I'm doing, you can go to my links in the description below and give me as little or as much money as you'd like through Patreon. I like to be upfront that it doesn't give you anything special, but it sure makes me feel nice. And as always, we love you. Please take your medicine.